Every year in the weeks leading up to Lent, parts of Germany go absolutely crazy, and deliberately so. People dress up in silly costumes, there are parades and parties and lots of fun and laughter. Well, fun and laughter for some people, not everybody enjoys it, and I have to say, it's not exactly to my taste either. This is of course part of the old German tradition of Karneval, also called Fasching or Fastnacht or some variant on one of those. Each region, sometimes each town or city, has its own peculiar traditions, but many of the basic elements are very similar in most places. So what is it, and what does it all mean? Well, I could make an hour-long documentary on the subject, but let me instead just try to summarize the most important details as briefly as I possibly can. The tradition as we know it today started to take shape in the medieval period. In his 13th century masterpiece Parsifal, poet Wolfram von Eschenbach describes a tradition in the village of Dolnstein where women would dress up as knights and stage mock battles. This happened just before Lent, a period of fasting in preparation for the festival of Easter. And if you knew that you were in for 6 weeks of praying, going to church and eating nothing but bread and broth, you'd probably want a massive party first. But it also incorporated a much older tradition going all the way back to about 3000 BC of having a season where the usual order is subverted. Masters had to serve their slaves, men had to obey their wives, kings had to listen to their subjects. So Carnival evolved into a season where ordinary people were allowed to speak truth to power. They could tell their religious and secular leaders exactly what they thought of them, and so the traditions that we see today are best understood in that light. Fundamentally, it's about role reversal. So in many places, a Carnival prince and princess are chosen from the general population to reign until Ash Wednesday. They don't really reign, of course, it's basically satire in the form of parody. But they have official engagements, which they attend wearing elaborate costumes, often with a particularly iconic hat. What is the hat for? Well, it's all part of the parody. It mocks the kind of flamboyant headgear that used to be worn centuries ago by the ruling classes. It's the ordinary folk telling government officials how stupid they look. In some places, the prince and princess oversee the storming of the town hall. Their followers stage a mock insurrection, arrest the mayor, force them to hand over the key to the town hall, not the real one obviously, and then subject them to public humiliation. These days a gentle humiliation, all in good fun, but still an important reminder. We voted you in, we can always vote you out. And there's more, because another big feature is the Karneval session, which on the surface is a brash and garish evening of music, dance and comedy, with performers and audience members alike in fancy dress, all with a ton of rituals and in-jokes. And of course, every single punchline is accompanied by one of the most annoying sounds in the entire universe. Now, if all of this makes you cringe, then you're not alone. Even a lot of Germans find this more embarrassing than anything else. But scratch the surface, and there's something quite interesting going on. The whole thing is, as I said, a parody. The pompous speeches, the ridiculous costumes, even the annoying fanfares, all of this is ordinary folk telling their rulers and their priests, this is what you look like to us. Most of the comedy routines are not harmless fun, they are deeply satirical and they make fun of politics and religion. And the politicians and priests are supposed to just take everything on the chin. The footage that I've just been showing you comes from one of the biggest of these events held every year in Veitshöchheim near Würzburg in Bavaria. All the important members of the Bavarian state government, up to and including the minister-president himself, are expected to attend and listen to comedians tearing their policies to shreds for 4 hours. In short, it's like a huge roast. Except that while the celebrity roast was invented in the US in the 1970s, The German Karneval sessions go back to the Middle Ages. And going back to the women of Dolnstein fighting mock battles, this is said to have given us the tradition of Weiberfasching. Back then, much more so than now, women had very few rights at all, and everything was organised for the benefit of the menfolk. So if you reverse the roles, what do you get? Well, first of all, events organised for women only to enjoy. At least traditionally, if men are present, then they're either providing the entertainment or they're serving the drinks. In some places, there's a more dramatic tradition. At Weiberfasching, women are allowed to cut the neckties of any men that they see, even complete strangers. Now, I may be reading a bit too much into this, but it feels to me like a kind of symbolic emasculation. And if you're thinking, surely that can't be legal, then you're not wrong. In 1988, a court in the city of Essen ruled that it is destruction of property and therefore illegal without the consent of the owner, even if it is a well-known tradition. So the advice to women is just make sure that the guy whose tie you're vandalizing is actually okay with it. And to men, the advice is just wear an old or ugly tie on this day and play along with the tradition. It is only one day a year, typically the Thursday before Ash Wednesday. Of course, Carnival finally culminates in the days before Ash Wednesday, particularly the parades on the Monday and the Tuesday, the biggest and most famous of which are held in Cologne and Düsseldorf. And these parades feature floats that continue the tradition of biting political satire and biting religious satire. No holds barred. Incidentally, this is not an actual public holiday, but you may find in places where the biggest parades are held that a lot of businesses basically close down for the day. There really isn't much point in trying to get any work done. Carnival is a bigger deal in some parts of Germany than in others. It's basically a Catholic tradition and is most associated with the Rhineland, Baden, Bavaria, and parts of Hesse. However, these days it is possible to find some kind of festivities, even including street parades in some other parts of Germany as well. And of course, it's not exactly the same everywhere. There are a large number of regional traditions, and I haven't, for example, really explained Carnival in Baden, which is quite a bit closer to the original medieval tradition. Oh, and during many of these festivities, there are often special greetings, generally on a call and response basis, that you are expected to know and use. Again, these vary from place to place. The most common ones are Olaf, Helau, Ahoy, and Nari Naru. But there is a long list of greetings specific to only one town or city. So there it is. While it may not be to everyone's taste, Carnival is certainly a fascinating and surprisingly complex cultural phenomenon. So, Helau! And if you'd like to see a Carnival procession but you can't make it to Germany on time, here is a very old video of mine. Now, where's my silly wig?